going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I had a little technical difficulty.
It's all good. Yeah, this thing's kind of wild. I think everybody on Zoom at once is causing problems too, probably for them. Thank you so much again, Celeste, for doing this. We Eric and I were just talking about the Cavs. I was looking at your Instagram, and you had Andre Drummond on there singing your song.
Yeah, that was so cool. Just about 2 days ago, we were on IG Live.
Yeah, that was awesome. Are you friends with them? Are you a fan of the Cavs?
No, you know what? I mean, yes, I'm not a big like sports follower, but it's like a cool moment in time because so many people are connecting via IG Live. So it was one of those things where I just joined in and I was watching and called in, and now I can say that he's listened to my music and that he liked it. So it's a really, really cool moment for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was telling Eric that my family's from Cleveland. So when I saw that, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
She has a Cav on there. That's so awesome.
You know what? If I didn't know how awesome it was before, I did have people like hitting me up like, do you know who that is? Like, that is so cool.
Yeah. That is awesome. I read that you were from Houston originally. Are you still living in Texas?
I live in Los Angeles. I left right after high school. Like, as soon as I had diploma in hand, I was out.
But the door.
I actually, like I said, it's such an interesting time because I've been home in Texas for the last 2 months. So I haven't spent this much time home in a very long time. But, with the virus and everything kind of shutting down, it just made sense to come home.
Yeah, that does. I mean, being around family and stuff. I don't know if you have family in LA, but that would be rough if you're just there by yourself.
I don't have, there's not a soul of family for me in LA. So it would have been a very rough couple months for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're home and you're safe and you're around family. That's great.
Yeah.
So tell me about growing up in Houston. How'd you get into music originally?
Well, I was like a super shy kid. Like, that's something I struggled with for most of my life, actually. And so my mom put me in a bunch of like extracurricular activities to try to get me out of my shell. And one of the first things I did, or she put me in, was a musical. And I was around 8 years old. And I remember the whole first audition process and, just being given my little script and my little piece of music and going in the room. And it's like the first time that I felt like that, like, competitive fire, I think, where I was like, this is something I want. Like, I want to impress them. I want that role. And so I ended up, doing pretty well in that show. So after that, I think that just kind of started the whole rabbit hole down the entertainment lane, and so yeah, I did a bunch of musicals all the way throughout high school, and it just became my thing, and I went down the acting route, but music was always like my first love. I didn't know the steps to take. I felt like, oh, I don't have a musical family, or I don't have connections in the industry. How does anyone even become a singer these days? Like, I just had no idea where to start.
Wow. So you were in that, the first thing you did was that musical, and you said you were trying to come out of your shell, but you had to audition for it. Was that?
Yeah.
That must have been pretty nerve-wracking.
Terrifying. Yeah. And you know what? I wish I could say that it got easier as, I did it, because I've done it so many times now, in my life, auditioning, and I still get that same feeling. You get better at it, but I was really scared. But there's also like just an aliveness. Is that a word?
I know what you're saying.
In that moment of it's like kind of like fight or flight. You have to decide to swim in that moment, and that's kind of like that adrenaline rush is you just go back for more every time, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So you're in musical theater. Do you play an instrument?
No, I was such a jerk as a kid. My mom tried so hard. She got me guitar lessons, piano lessons, but I was just, I wanted to be a rebel and I was too cool for that. And so that's something I regret now because I would love to be able to, I write my own songs. So
Mm-hmm.
most of the time I'm having to like, go through tons and tons of beats. I would love to like pluck something out for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely something I have to work on.
Yeah, that's always the thing with I always say too that my biggest regret was never learning piano because we had
Yeah.
one in my house. My dad could play it, and my sister, who's younger than me, she went with it and took lessons, and she's really good. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could sit down on the piano and play. Like I can hammer out a couple notes, but that's about it. But
When you're younger, I don't think you know how cool it is to like, as an adult, be able to just sit down and play a song. Like,
yeah,
come
totally.
on.
I have a 12-year-old now that we've been trying to push into piano lessons. He did lessons for a while, and then during this quarantine thing, he couldn't go anymore. So I'm trying to like go practice.
Yeah.
That's gonna be something you'll always regret, just like I did, and other people I've talked to. So
Yes, thank me later.
yeah, exactly. So you said you write your own songs. So when did you start writing music, or when did you start writing lyrics and stuff?
Writing is a very recent, like writing songs is a recent development, but
Mhm.
because I was studying acting for so many years, it was always just like a part of the curriculum. Like we had to write monologues, we had to write, backgrounds for our characters. So I got into the habit of like always having to, look within and figure out why am I doing the things I'm doing and why do people respond the way they do to certain situations. And like I said, I almost didn't think that I had permission to like be a musician or to be a singer or to write songs. I thought like someone comes along and says, "Hey, you're a songwriter." Like I
Mhm.
didn't know how it happened. But one day, I found a lot of like rough times being in Los Angeles, and I was just, many days in my apartment alone. And one day I just decided to actually got a little notebook from a coworker, and it had my name, like my
Mhm.
initial on it, letter C.
Mhm.
And she just gave it to me like randomly. And I looked at it and I was like, you know what? This is going to be my song book. And I never expected any of them to come out of that book. Like I thought they would just die there.
Yeah.
So the first time I opened it up and it like kind of just took me down this whirlwind of, now I'm a songwriter, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, I definitely started writing songs not thinking anything of it. Like I didn't think I would be much good at it. I didn't even know how you become good at it or who's allowed to write songs. Like I said, so when I figured out I was good at it, though,
Mhm.
that changed everything for me for sure.
That's awesome. So you said you moved to LA right out of like right when you got that degree in your hand, you're out the door. Were
Yeah.
you going to LA to pursue acting?
Um, what happened? Oh, there we are.
Oh, there you are.
Yes, I actually got into a conservatory, which is like you get college credits, but all you're doing is studying acting all day long.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's only 2 years, but you go you go in like learning all types of stuff about the business and stuff. Yeah, so I got into that school, and the same thing. There was like another audition process. I didn't even tell my mom when we had the first audition because I went to this arts high school in Houston. So, when the seniors are about to graduate, they do a really good job of like introducing us to these schools and these possibilities and how we can we can take these acting careers forward. Mm-hmm. So they actually came to my school, and I auditioned for them thinking like, no way this fancy school in Hollywood is ever going to want me. That's crazy. And I got in.
Wow.
And when I got in, then I went to work on my mother. Like, you have to let me go. This is everything to me. Like, it's going to change my life. That whole spiel. I'm my mom's only child. So that's like, it was really, really hard for her to let me go.
Oh yeah, you're a baby.
Yeah, especially because back then, you know, I was like, oh, I'm 18, like I got this, I'll be fine. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into, no clue. So yeah, she ended up, she actually did, she would be above and beyond to make sure I got out to LA. Like, she went as far as to sell cars. She put our house up for rent. Like, she sacrificed when she realized that, you know, that it was something that I really wanted. We had like a couple of rough years before that. So I think it was like her gift to me. Like, she felt like that's what she could give me, is this shot at this dream. So, I mean, I say that because I think it's really important to my story, because my mom's a first generation immigrant from Mexico. So really? Like, yeah, she got here when she was like around 12. So I think that like that has affected the way that she grew up, and then also the way that she raised me. Mm-hmm. And so like, I knew that one of her dreams, like, it took her dad years and years to get all of her siblings over here. And I remember one of her dreams was to have a house with a pool. And we finally got, like, she finally moved us out to the suburbs in high school. And like, I had a house with a pool, and she was like, that was it for her. And she turned around, like, not even a couple, like, it was maybe 2 years later when it was time for me to graduate. And she put it up on the market, and she sold her car, and I still to this day have no idea how she made that happen, but she got me out to LA in an apartment with a couple other girls. And yeah, that's where my whole crazy story started after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to go back real quick. That's so crazy. That's awesome that your mom believes in you that much, that she would, you know, put it all up for you. That's so great. Yeah. You said that you went to a art high school.
Yeah.
How did you get into the art high school? Was that another audition process?
Oh my God. My whole life I'm auditioning. It's all I do.
That's what it sounds like. Wow.
Yes. No, my life has been, I was actually talking to a friend, and I told him, like, yeah, I feel like my life has been a series of auditions, because since I was a little girl, it's just something that I do. Mm-hmm. And it was the same thing. I actually, you know, I had a choice between two schools coming out of middle school, and one was called Carnegie Vanguard, and it's like a school for, they used to say gifted and talented or whatever, that like it's like an academically whatever school, right? Yeah. So you have to take this crazy test to get in, yada yada yada. And then there was the art school, which is where I wanted to go. And I was like, so I auditioned my first year, but like I said, I've always been super shy, even up until high school. Sometimes, you know, I made a large leap from my, you know, first year at that school to the last year, but it was hard for me to open my mouth and sing still as a freshman going into high school. It was very scary for me. So I'm not one of those kids that just came out like, ha, you know, like, look at me. Yeah. So my first year, I went to audition and, you know, waited for the letter a couple weeks later, and I got declined, and I was so wrecked. I remember that feeling. Well, I've had that feeling many times in my life, unfortunately, but I was just like, this was it. That was it for me. And I didn't get in. So I went to the Carnegie Vanguard School, and that's when I started getting in trouble and like hanging out with the seniors. I had no business hanging out with them. And, I just was like, nah, I this is not where I'm supposed to be. So finally a year goes by, and my second time I went back and auditioned again. And I was just not taking no for an answer this time. And I got accepted for my sophomore year. So I really do believe that school changed my life. Like there's a couple things that have changed my life, but for sure that like I grew up at that school, and it had such an interesting environment. Like there's so many amazing people that come out of that school because of that. And I mean, you're just surrounded by artists. And I mean, every Friday, I remember we had like it's called a happening, and all the kids would like come gather in the cafeteria, and there would be one of our student DJs, and we would just like have a party lunch, like
Wow.
It was just it was such a relaxed, really, everyone is super focused on something. So none of the like, we didn't even have sports teams, so there was not a lot of distractions. Everybody was just doing their thing. So yeah, I definitely didn't get it my first time though, but made it my second time around. So
that's cool that they let you audition again though.
Oh yeah.
Saying, oh, that was your one shot. Sorry.
Yeah. And I did, it was pretty embarrassing for me, but I remember my mom telling me like, girl, you better, like, if it's something that you want, there is like, she always tells me if there is a will, there's a way. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to go again because I was embarrassed. Like, they didn't want me the first time. Or are they going to want me the second time? But she never let me give up. And I like, till this day, I don't take, I've had a lot of no's, and I just don't seem to take that for an answer.
That's a good characteristic to have. Get what you want.
I think I gotta.
Yeah. So you got into the school in LA, you moved to Los Angeles, and you said that's kind of where your story began. So what happened after you moved to LA? What was the first thing that kind of...
Man, we jumped into the curriculum at my school really fast when I got there, and they do expect a lot of you. So, all of a sudden you're studying Shakespeare and all kinds of dialects and acting for the camera, and go pick up these 20 books. And so I was super involved in my school, especially for the first time. But then when my eyes started to get big because, I was meeting all these people from all over the world, and I'd never met like some of these personalities. So of course it's LA. So I started to get invited to, like all these glamorous parties and like rubbing elbows with like celebrities, which I've never been very starstruck, but I just knew like, this is really fucking cool. This is really cool what I'm doing.
Yeah,
like,
you can cuss.
Okay, great, cool. I have a problem with that.
No, go ahead.
Like, no, this is really cool. And so I got swept up pretty easily in the party lifestyle. And then all of a sudden it was like, my school kept me focused for those 2 years because they would release you if you weren't doing, they would score us and grade us, and so they'd release you. I had to keep on my game a little bit. But after I graduated from that school, after the second year in LA, I started doing the whole auditioning, serving tables, and partying, but mostly just partying. So, there's a lot of things you can fall into in that kind of lifestyle, and it can easily take years from you. And I think like I got a little taste of kind of not having. I went from a girl that's always had direction in her life, like always had a show to rehearse for, or an audition, or my mom making me play basketball or do a pottery class. Like my mom didn't allow me to not have something to do. So then when I was out in this city with all this like glamorous shit happening around me, I just kind of got swept up, and all of a sudden it was, yes to every night out and less of anything else. And, that like, I think I always struggled, especially as a teenager. I was like a pretty like angry, sad teenager and into my adulthood too. So you layer that on top of not having a good lifestyle, and I just became like this really sad, lost person, and that happened really quickly. And you hear stories about it and you're like, oh, like people lose themselves in LA, or Hollywood makes people lose themselves, and you just really don't know until and then you're like, oh, okay, I get it. I mean, it can happen anywhere, but it just it happened to happen to me in LA. So yeah.
There's like a fine line there, I feel like, where you kind of have to go out and do those things because you're, like you said, you're going to these parties and there's celebrities there. It's like a fine line of networking with these people that could get you auditions and then going to, and then partying too much. It's like you kind of have to do that balance. But I feel like you really do have to be a part of that, because if you're not a part of the parties and you're not meeting the producers or the writers or the people that can get you gigs and jobs.
Yeah. And that is the toughest part, is because you have to participate if you want to be in the entertainment industry. You can't just, wait. It's not going to come to you in your apartment. But there's also like a fine line. It, like you said, it can get blurred super easily. So I know a lot of my artist friends struggle with that. So I'm sure artists in general struggle with that,
Yeah, I totally agree. So you said you're waiting tables and going to auditions and stuff. And then what made you kind of go more of the music route instead of the acting route?
Oh my God, it just wasn't working. Like I feel like acting was a safer route for me. Like I was like, my family has no connections. We have no money. We have nothing. Like, I wouldn't know. They don't know where to start to help me. I don't know where to start to help me. But, acting was something I'd always done. And I started to what I felt was like excel at it. So I was like, you know what, there's like, this is like where my education is. Like, I know how to do this. I can go get a career in this. And so that I tried. Like I said, I did. I mean, I took all the headshots and did all the things. And, I started to see my friends like progress. And that was really hard for me, because I was used to being, like always having something shiny to show people, like, oh, look at this new thing, or, oh, look at, and that when I got to LA, it was like the complete opposite. Like I had nothing going. Well, what I felt was nothing going for me. And, I started to see, like I said, I started to see the people that I went to school with, kind of book their first jobs and their first movies and all this stuff. And it was just like, oh my God, like I realized that I hadn't, like, they deserved that. You know what I mean? Like like I said, I was doing more partying than anything else. I hadn't really, I'd put in some of the groundwork, but not enough. Like it takes a lot, So, and then I had to ask myself, well, why not? Why aren't you putting in the groundwork? Like, if this is your passion, you moved across the country, you left your family, why did you do this? And then the answer was always there. Like when I was a little girl, I didn't say, hey, when I grow up, even when I was in shows, I wasn't like, oh, I want to be an actor when I grow up. I always said I wanted to be a singer. Like, and so I decided to give myself a chance, because I had tried everything else. So I was like, my mom had been helping support me in LA. It's very, very hard obviously for some young girl to like stay afloat there, not doing much of anything. Yeah. So my mom, once again, she kept saving my ass. Like, okay, I'll give you another year. I'll give you another year. I'll give you another year. And I felt my time running out, and I was like, Celeste, you are wasting it. You're wasting it. What are you doing? And it was like my last ditch effort. I was like, you know what? Like if I'm going to have to go home, like if this dream was not going to work out, like I'm going to try everything. So I was like, I'm going to give the music a chance. I just started to write, like I said, write those songs that I never thought would make it out of the book. It was just like on all those days in my apartment, I was like, okay, well, let's look back in the story and, you know, dig up what we can and try to make something out of it. Honestly, that's what it was.
Mm-hmm. And
yeah.
So when you decided to go, you know, to start singing or just pursuing that as your career, what was the first thing that you did? Did you take those songs or that notebook of lyrics and stuff and put it to music? Like, how did that begin for you?
Well, I started to, I actually went a little bit cuckoo. And I like, my whole room was covered in like like pieces of paper taped up to the wall. And I just gave myself like a crash course in like the music industry, which obviously I'm never going to know enough, but I needed to know something. I didn't know anything. So I started looking up, you know, like I didn't even know where to find a beat. Like, how do you get beats? How do you lease beats? How do you, you know, where do you record? What kind of mic should you record on? Like just literally from ground zero. And I started taking notes and posting that up all over my wall. And, you know, how do you get your music heard and what should you do first? And all these blogs, you know, there's such a wealth of information out there. Like in this time, before I actually started doing this, you know, crazy post it up on your wall, I was messaging everyone I could find on Instagram, you know, like I was trying to figure out how all these people are connected and, you know, like which people I need to know. And cause like I said, I had no one. I was like, everyone always talks about having this team. And I was like, God, I have no one. There's no one. What am I going to do? So I was just grasping at anything, you know, messaging people. How do I do this? Where do I start? I was getting left on scene all the time. And so finally I was like, okay, it taught me a lesson. Like like if there are answers that you can find for yourself, you have to go find them, you know? So then that's what I did. And I found those answers for myself. And before I ended up with my manager now, that's why I was kind of wary of management when it finally came around, because I had like a couple other people before that, you know, told me like, oh, we're going to help you with your music. And those situations just nothing good ever came out of them. So I decided to release, actually had my first single. I sat on it for like a year because like I said, I just didn't know that I was good at it. And I didn't know that if people would like it or not. Like, it's just something that, so I sat on it. And then, you know, me and my mom, we're very close and she like gives me the reel. And one day I was just like, you know, playing it for her. And she was like, I think you did something like, and so that's when I started taking it more seriously. And I was like, you know what? Like, I think I did. So I found a studio, you know, I paid for all my studio time. I re-recorded it, got it mixed and mastered. I figured out how you do a rollout, you know, got my pre-saves going. And then all of a sudden now I'm in the game, you know, like now I know, you know, like I said, I didn't have the steps before, but all of a sudden I realized, oh, there are steps, you know, like I might be able to, you know, to do this. And, after I got my rollout, you know, like once again, hey, I have a song out. And pretty quickly after that, like, you know, my manager found me. And after that, you know, it was pretty much history. So yeah, I'm so good. Like, go ahead.
I was going to ask, was that song Caution? Was that the first song you put out? Okay.
Yeah, that was Caution. That was the one.
So that was just a song that you had from your notebook. And you found a beater, you found the beat you leased the beat or whatever and recorded it. Wow.
Yeah. I found this one producer on YouTube, because like I said, I would spend hours and hours because I knew what sound I was looking for, but I just couldn't find it. So I couldn't make it myself. So I had to rely on who's out here making this sound. And I found one guy who I pretty consistently liked his beats. And then when I heard the beat for Caution, it's just like the story was right there. And that's the first time, like, that's my same process. I didn't know back then that would be pretty much the same process I use to write, is usually the music is first. And then if I hear the story, then I'll write to it, So it's so funny to look back and realize that's where you started your process.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
was it the same process for Wish You Well and then the new single as well?
Yeah. I actually, you know what? My manager linked me up with a guy named Eddie, who's in the musical duo Watch the Duck. And he was like, I think you guys are going to be a great pair to work together. And so my first day, I met him and his partner, Jesse. And, I sang a little bit of something that they had, and I could tell they just weren't really, they're like, okay, is this the same girl from Instagram? Like, okay. I was super nervous. And then, like I said, I opened up that notebook, and Wish You Well was like one of the first things I sang for him. And I have a song called 18 and Lovely. And that's really how it began. Like, when Eddie heard those songs out of my notebook, he was the one that told me, like, no, like, this is the stuff right here. And after that, I had melodies, and he could work around them and start building, the music around these stories. So
wow.
Yeah.
And now with the new single Damaged Goods, tell me about that song and what do you have coming up next? Are you going to release more singles?
Yeah. Damaged Goods is super special to me because, we're just in this crazy time right now. And in my career so far, I was starting to, kind of gain some traction and do some things and meet some people I never thought I'd be able to meet. And then, this crazy virus happens, and all of a sudden you don't know what's going to happen to your year. And so that took a big hit on me. But then I realized that I'm in the perfect environment right now because this is how it started. Just me using my resources and figuring it out myself. And anyway, I decided to put out music even though I don't really know what's happening, right? And so I made a quarantine style video to it, and I really got to flush out who I am as an artist visually. And that's something that I don't think would have happened without all this time to myself. And so I think it just really gave me a clear vision. And I'm home in Texas, which, like I said, I haven't been home in Houston for a long time for this amount of time. So it was kind of like I sampled a very, very popular Houston artist, Iconic. And so I was it's kind of like my shout out to my hometown. And I really wanted to have a song like that. And then to be here and be able to work on the visual here, it's just super special. But in terms of the writing of the song, it was actually, I had my fair share of critics come into my process, even in the studio, and be like, what are you know what you're doing? Or you always have those people. And so I remember I had a meeting after a studio session, and someone I really respected was like, I like your music, you're a great writer, but you have to make sure that we know who you are when we listen to your music. And that shocked me awake, because I was like, well, of course, that's the only thing I want to do. If you don't know who I am after this, what am I doing? And literally that night I went home and I wrote Damaged Goods, because I think one of my best qualities is that I really am able to own everything that I've been through, the good decisions I've made, the bad decisions I've made. And so it was another attempt. I feel like I do this in my music a lot, to just own my shit, I'm A, B, and C, and I don't always get it right. And sometimes you're going to have to help me out, but I still want you. I'm still here. I'm still open for these, for love and for all and for new experiences. And I felt like it was a perfect time in this setting to like put out a song like that. You know, like things may not have gone the way we expected this year. It might be a little damaged now. You know, maybe it was your wedding, it was your graduation. For me, it was making music. You know, but it can still be good. So.
I love that. It's such
Yeah.
a great message, like you said, for these times. It's so uncertain, and I
Yeah.
really feel like I love that you brought up like high school graduations and stuff, because I always talk about that. Like right now, the kids that are supposed to graduate, like they've been looking their whole lives for this, and now what? They've got to be like on Zoom accepting their diploma, or if you were like a basketball player that was going to go play at North Carolina or something, like what now? Like the NCAA shut down. Like I feel for those people. I mean, that's especially like artists like you can't go out and tour and do things that would, be ways for you guys to make money. It's just
right. There's like a bigness to this moment. Like nobody's untouched by it. So it's like, when you look back in history and we're looking at all these times we feel so disconnected from because we didn't live through them, we look to like the music and the art and like, okay, well, what was it like and how did it feel? So it's going to be interesting to see like going forward how this affects that, because, it's everyone's been, you can't come out of this unchanged. And if you can, well, I don't know. I don't know how you did it, but it definitely has affected me and I'm hoping for the better,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it changed the world and the way it's going to be moving forward, kind of like a 9/11, how everything kind of changed after that. I feel like it's going to be similar as far as getting people to get back outside and get back to shows with X thousand people there. And
and to feel safe and comfortable. And it's interesting. People to even feel safe to touch or hug,
right.
Overnight things can change. So, yeah.
So you said you had another song, or what's it called? 18 and Perfect? 18 and
Lovely.
18 and Lovely.
Yes.
Is that song out yet, or are you compiling like an EP?
Yeah, you know what? I'm thinking, I'm not sure if we'll put out another single or if we'll do a project, but we definitely have the songs. So that's what's exciting is, like I said, I worked really hard for a couple months in the studio and I was just writing song after song. So I feel like we do have what we need for that first, like introduction to, hopefully a lot of people finding out who I am. But 18 and Lovely is definitely one of the ones I'm most excited about. It's about what we talked about, my story from LA to, from Houston to LA and really what it's like to be like a young girl out in this new city. And so I think it's the one that, gets people so far when I play them my music. So I'm really excited about when we're gonna do that one and show everyone. Yeah.
Very exciting. I can't wait to hear the rest of your songs. I've listened to the 3 that you have out now and they're amazing. So I know that the next stuff is just going to be incredible too.
Yeah.
And I have one more question for you. And I really appreciate you spending the time to talk to me. You have a great story. I love it.
Thank you.
I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists like yourself, like when going to LA and doing this. Do you have any advice for people doing that?
I would say the biggest lesson I learned was when I got all of those, read messages and where people weren't, I don't know why I expected people to rush to my aid and give me all the answers. But if you're like me and you're expecting people to, help you, I mean, of course, ask for help if you need it. But if you're expecting people to do the groundwork for you, it's not something that they can do for you. You got to go, read about your craft, read about what other people are doing, find your people. If they're not coming to you, go find them. They're out there. Offer your kindness, offer, your genuine self. And those people, from my experience, those people will come out of nowhere if you just do the work. So I would definitely say, if I was talking to myself, I would say, please don't give up. Please reach out to those people. Please find your network. Please know about your business, and dig in if you really want it, because it's not easy, but it's so worth it when you get a little taste of your dream.